The stars hung silent and cold in the viewing port as Captain John Miller sipped his coffee. Another quiet day patrolling the outer edges of the Sol system. His ship, the EDF Defender, was the newest in Earth's small but growing defense fleet. Humanity had only reached Mars with colonies and was just beginning to mine the asteroid belt. Their first steps into space were small, compared to what waited beyond. "Captain, we're picking up something strange near Neptune's orbit," said Eric, the young radar operator. His voice held a note of confusion. "It's not matching any known signatures." Miller put down his coffee and moved to the radar station. "Asteroid?" "No, sir. It's moving too fast and changing direction. Multiple objects." The communications officer, Linda, turned in her seat. "Sir, we're getting some kind of transmission. It's not in any Earth language." Miller felt a chill run through him. First contact. After decades of searching the skies, aliens had found humanity instead. "Send the greeting package," Miller ordered. Scientists had prepared messages in all major Earth languages along with basic math and science to help establish communication. "And alert Earth Defense Command." The strange ships came into visual range after 20 minutes. They were sleek blue-purple vessels that moved with unnatural grace. 5 of them, each twice the size of Miller's patrol ship. "Sir," Linda called out. "They're responding, but I don't think it's friendly." Before Miller could ask why, a bright beam of energy shot past his ship, missing by less than half a mile. "That was a warning shot," said Miller, his heart racing. "Battle stations, turn us around and prepare for emergency burn." The crew jumped to action. Unlike the movies, there was no panic, just trained professionals doing their jobs. Miller had one clear thought: Earth needed to know what they were facing. "Begin continuous data broadcast to Earth. Everything we have on these ships, their weapons, movements, energy readings, everything." The Defender began its burn away from the alien vessels as they accelerated in pursuit. Aboard the lead vessel of the Azulian scout fleet, Commander Vex watched the primitive human ship flee. "Pathetic," he said to his second-in-command. "They run at the first sign of our might." "Should we destroy them completely?" asked his officer. Vex considered this. "No. High Command wants information on this species before we begin full conquest. Let them run. Track their communications. We will learn their weaknesses before the main fleet arrives." What Vex failed to understand was that the human ship wasn't fleeing in fear. It was executing a tactical retreat while gathering intelligence. On Earth, Defense Director Samantha Wright stared at the incoming data from the Defender. The small conference room in Washington, D.C. was packed with military officers, scientists, and government officials from around the world. "These readings confirm it," said Dr. Ben Collins, lead scientist of the First Contact Response Team. "Their weapons technology is at least 2 centuries ahead of ours." General Frank Harris slammed his fist on the table. "So we surrender? Is that what you're saying?" "No," Wright said firmly. "We prepare. Captain Miller's data shows they have advanced technology, but also reveals patterns. They use standard tactics, suggesting a rigid military doctrine." The Chinese military representative spoke up. "Director Wright is correct. The alien vessels showed no creativity in their pursuit. They follow training, not instinct." Wright nodded. "We have 3 months before their main fleet arrives, according to Miller's estimates based on their communications. We need to use that time wisely." For the first time in human history, nations put aside their differences. Factories worldwide converted to weapons production. Scientists worked around the clock analyzing the alien technology. Military forces trained together instead of against each other. The Azulian High Admiral Zorex reviewed the reconnaissance data from Commander Vex. "Another primitive world," he said dismissively. "They barely have spacecraft capable of reaching their own moon." "The conquest should be simple," agreed his chief strategist. "We will follow standard protocol." The Azulian Empire had conquered 17 star systems over 3,000 years. Their approach never changed. Identify a target world, isolate it from potential allies, demonstrate overwhelming force, and accept their surrender. The few species that resisted were quickly crushed. "Deploy the full battle group," ordered Zorex. I want this system under Azulian control within one standard cycle. What Zorex could not understand was that humans were unlike any species the Azulians had encountered before. The very idea of surrender was foreign to many humans. Their history was filled with examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through creativity, desperation, and sheer determination. 3 months passed quickly on Earth. Captain Miller's ship had made it back with valuable data. He now stood on the bridge of the newly completed EDF Defiance, Earth's first true warship. Around him, a fleet of 50 vessels prepared to defend humanity. Not enough, Miller said quietly to Wright, who had come aboard to see the fleet off. It's all we have, she replied. But we've studied their tactics. Their weapons might be advanced, but their thinking is predictable. They expect us to either surrender immediately or fight a conventional battle they're sure to win. Miller nodded. So we do neither. The human fleet had been equipped with weapons designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in Azulian shield frequencies. They couldn't match Azulian firepower, but they didn't need to. They just needed to survive long enough to show the aliens that humanity wouldn't be an easy conquest. When the Azulian main fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, Zorex was surprised to find a defensive formation waiting. They wish to die with honor, he said. Grant them that before we take their world. The Azulian ships formed a perfect attack pattern, exactly as they had done in 17 previous conquests. They expected the humans to break formation and run, or to hold position and be destroyed. Instead, the human fleet split into small, unpredictable groups that darted between the Azulian ships, firing at specific points on their shields. What are they doing? Demanded Zorex as warning lights flashed across his command console. Their weapons are too weak to penetrate our shields. Sir, his tactical officer reported with disbelief. They're targeting the same shield harmonics. Repeatedly, they're causing localized failures. For the first time in his long career, Zorex felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. The first battle for Earth lasted 14 hours. When it ended, both sides pulled back to regroup. The human fleet had lost 17 ships, the Azulians had lost 12. The first time in their history they had suffered significant losses against a technologically inferior enemy. As Miller's damaged ship limped back to Earth, he received a message from Wright. We've shown them we won't go quietly, she said. But this is just the beginning. Miller looked out at the stars, no longer peaceful, but now a battlefield. They made their first mistake when they thought we would surrender. Their biggest mistake was giving us time to prepare. The war for humanity's survival had begun, and the Azulians were about to learn why it was unwise to underestimate humans. 6 months had passed since the first battle with the Azulians. Earth was still standing, but the war was taking its toll. Smoke rose from cities that had suffered Azulian attacks. Orbital defense stations floated in space, some whole, some broken, yet human spirits remained unbroken. Colonel Amy Peterson looked out the viewport of her small stealth ship, the Night Shadow. Her 5-person crew had been hiding in the rings of Saturn for 3 days, waiting. Intelligence had identified an Azulian patrol route, and Peterson had a daring plan. Target approaching, whispered Lieutenant Greg Daniels from the sensor station. Single Azulian scout ship, just as predicted. Peterson nodded. All hands ready. Remember, we need that ship intact. The Night Shadow had been covered with materials that absorbed radar and light. It was nearly invisible until it moved. As the Azulian scout passed by, Peterson gave the order. Now. The engines fired, pushing the stealth ship directly toward the alien vessel. Before the Azulians could react, Peterson's team fired specially designed weapons that overloaded the alien ship's systems without causing permanent damage. Boarding team ready, said Sergeant Joe Kelly, checking his weapon. We have 15 minutes before their distress signal reaches the main fleet. Peterson led the boarding party herself. They cut through the Azulian hull and stormed inside. The alien crew, tall blue-skinned beings with 4 arms, fought back but were quickly subdued with stun weapons. Secure the prisoners, Peterson ordered. Engineering team, begin the tow. 14 minutes later, the Night Shadow was pulling away, the small Azulian vessel attached to its hull with magnetic clamps. Behind them, Saturn's rings hid their escape route from the approaching Azulian response fleet. Dr. Alan Garcia hadn't slept properly in 3 days. The captured Azulian ship had been brought to a secret facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, and as Earth's leading expert on alien technology, he was in charge of understanding how it worked. "The power source is like nothing we've ever seen," he explained to General Kevin Harris, who had come to check on their progress. "It's some kind of controlled fusion reaction, but contained in ways our science hasn't figured out yet." Harris, a tall man with gray hair and a stern face, nodded. "That's interesting, Doctor, but what about weapons and defenses? That's what will keep us alive." Garcia led him to another section of the ship, where a team of engineers was carefully examining the shield generators. "Here's where it gets interesting," Garcia said, his exhaustion forgotten in his excitement. "Their shields operate on a fixed frequency pattern. They cycle through 12 settings in a predictable sequence. It's efficient against conventional weapons, but if we know the pattern, we can time our attacks to hit when the shields are weakest." Harris finished understanding immediately. "Exactly. And even better, we can tune our weapons to those exact frequencies. The Azulians have never needed to fix this weakness because no enemy has ever survived long enough to discover it." Harris allowed himself a small smile. "How soon can we implement this?" "We've already sent the specifications to the manufacturing centers. They're retooling now. For the first time since the war began, Earth had found a real advantage. On the Azulian command ship, the Eternal Dominion, High Admiral Zorx was facing something unfamiliar: criticism. "The Emperor is displeased with the delay," said Council Representative Zila, her forearms folded in a gesture of disapproval. "A primitive species like this should have been conquered immediately." Zorx kept his anger controlled. "These humans are unusual. They do not fight according to any recognizable doctrine. Their tactics are chaotic, unpredictable." "Are you saying our mighty empire is threatened by primitives who have barely left their own planet?" Zila's tone was mocking. "I am saying we should not underestimate them. We have lost 23 ships in 6 months. That has never happened before." "Then perhaps we need new leadership," Zila suggested coldly. "The Emperor has sent his own son, Prince Dizor, to observe your next attack. Success will preserve your position. Failure..." She left the threat unspoken. Zorx bowed stiffly. "The next attack will end this resistance. I have ordered our forces to target their largest military installation on their 4th planet. When Mars falls, Earth will lose hope." Commander Lisa Ward looked at the assembled pilots in the briefing room of Mars Defense Station Alpha. The Red Planet had become humanity's second military hub, with factories built into the sides of Olympus Mons producing the new weapons designed by Dr. Garcia. "Intel says the Azulians are planning a major assault on Mars," she told her pilots. "They think taking our second home will break us. Let's show them how wrong they are." The pilots cheered. Ward continued, "Each of your ships has been equipped with the new frequency-modulated weapons. Remember your training. Fire in precisely timed volleys. One hit might not penetrate their shields, but several hits at the exact same frequency will create a cascade failure." A young pilot raised his hand. "Commander, we're still outnumbered 3-1. Even with the new weapons, numbers aren't everything, Lieutenant," Ward said with confidence. "The Azulians fight like machines, following the same patterns every time. We fight like humans, adaptable, unpredictable. That's our real advantage." The Battle of Mars orbit began at dawn, Earth time. The Azulian fleet appeared in perfect formation, just as they had in every previous engagement. From his command ship, High Admiral Zorx watched with Prince Dizor standing behind him. "Observe, Highness," Zorx said confidently. "The humans will attempt to scatter our formation with small attack groups, as they have done before. But this time, we are ready for their tricks." But the human ships didn't follow their previous tactics. Instead, they formed a tight defensive sphere around Mars. When the Azulians moved into attack range, the human ships suddenly broke formation. Not in small groups, but in a coordinated spinning maneuver that confused Azulian targeting systems. "What are they doing?" demanded Prince Dizor. Before Zorex could answer, reports flooded in from across the fleet. Shield failures on multiple ships. Weapons offline. Hull breach in sectors 7 through 12. On the tactical display, Zorex watched in horror as his ships began to fall. The humans were firing weapons that somehow bypassed Azulian shields, striking directly at vital systems. "Impossible," he whispered. Commander Ward's voice came over the communication channel broadcast on all frequencies. "Attention, Azulian fleet. Your shields have been compromised. Withdraw now or be destroyed." Prince Dizor grabbed Zorex's arm. "Order the retreat, now." For the first time in his long career, High Admiral Zorex gave the order to retreat. As his damaged flagship turned away from Mars, a final blast struck the command center. The last thing Zorex saw was the human fleet holding position around Mars, unbroken and defiant. In the aftermath of the battle, Commander Ward received a direct call from Earth. "Impressive work, Commander," said Defense Director Wright. "The Azulians are in full retreat across the system." "Thank you, Director. We couldn't have done it without Dr. Garcia's breakthrough." "This is just the beginning," Wright cautioned. "We've won a battle, not the war. But we've learned something important. The Azulians can be beaten." Ward looked out at the stars beyond Mars. "What's our next move?" "The President and World Council have made a decision," Wright said, her face serious. "We're taking the fight to them. Admiral Rodriguez is preparing a fleet. For the first time, humanity is going beyond our solar system, not as explorers, but as warriors." The tide of war had turned. Humanity was no longer just defending, they were ready to attack. The stars looked different from this side of the solar system. Admiral Paul Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the EDF Intrepid, Earth's first true interstellar warship. Around him, a fleet of 40 human vessels prepared to do what no human had done before: leave their home system to take the fight to an enemy. "Final checks complete, Admiral," reported his second-in-command, Captain Olivia Reyes. "All ships report ready." Rodriguez nodded. At 55, he had spent his entire career believing humans would one day reach the stars in peace. Now they were going as warriors. "Send the message to Earth," he ordered. "Operation Distant Thunder is commencing." The human fleet activated their new engines, reverse-engineered from captured Azulian technology. The stars blurred as they accelerated to speeds humans had only dreamed of until now. Unlike traditional military fleets, Rodriguez didn't keep his ships in tight formation. They traveled in small, scattered groups, harder to track, harder to predict. The Azulians had rigid patterns for everything, including how they monitored the space around their territory. "We've detected an Azulian patrol route," Reyes said, pointing to the tactical display. "Their ships pass this area every 14 hours. Perfect timing." Rodriguez smiled. "Set the ambush. Remember, we're not here for a major battle yet. Hit and run. Damage their infrastructure, disrupt their communications, then disappear before they can respond." The human ships powered down to minimal systems and waited. When the Azulian patrol appeared, they struck from multiple directions, simultaneously. The alien ships, caught by surprise, barely had time to raise shields before precision strikes from the human vessels disabled their engines and communications. "No distress signals sent," Reyes confirmed. "Clean operation." Rodriguez nodded. "Secure the prisoners and salvage what technology we can, then we move to the next target." This pattern repeated across the edge of Azulian space, small, precise. Strikes that left the aliens confused and disoriented. The humans were fighting unlike any enemy the Azulians had ever faced, refusing to engage in the formal, predictable battles that the Empire was accustomed to. On the Azulian throne world, the news of these attacks caused panic in the Imperial High Council. "How are they hitting us everywhere at once?" demanded Emperor Zorax, his forearms gesturing in agitation. "They're primitives. They shouldn't even be able to reach our territory." The new High Admiral, Valar, bowed nervously. "My Emperor, the humans are not fighting according to any known doctrine. They use small ships to strike critical targets, then vanish before we can engage them properly." "Find them and destroy them," the Emperor roared. "We're trying, Majesty, but they don't maintain standard formations. They operate in small, independent groups that can reunite or scatter at will." Our forces are trained to fight fleets, not these guerrilla tactics. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You will adapt our tactics, Admiral, or I will find someone who can. While Rodriguez's fleet harassed the Azulian military, Ambassador Catherine Young was making progress on a different front. Her ship, the diplomatic corps vessel Unity, had made contact with representatives from the Krell, a species that had been under Azulian control for 6 generations. The Azulians have told us that resistance is futile for thousands of years, said Elder Thex, the Krell leader. His gray, scaled skin shimmered in the low light of the meeting chamber. We have forgotten how to fight. The idea isn't to have you fight directly, Young explained. Not yet. But there are other ways to resist. Information, resources, safe havens for our ships. The Krell Elder's large eyes blinked slowly. You truly believe you can defeat the Empire? No one has succeeded in 3,000 years. Young smiled. No one has tried it our way before. Dr. Ryan Bennett led the cultural contact team that worked, alongside Ambassador Young. Trained as both a xenolinguist and anthropologist, he specialized in understanding alien cultures. The Azulians have used the same subjugation technique for millennia, he explained to Young after their meeting with the Krell. They break a species' will to fight, then integrate them into their empire as a servant race. But it won't work. On humans, Young said. Bennett nodded. Our history is different. We've never had a single ruler, a single culture. When one human nation was conquered throughout history, others remained free and continued fighting. We're naturally resistant to the kind of cultural domination the Azulians rely on. This insight proved valuable as they made contact with more subjected species. The insectoid vril, the gaseous morphians, and 5 others. Each had been conquered and controlled, their cultures reshaped to serve the Empire. We don't need them to rise up all at once, Young told Rodriguez during their secure communication. We just need them to stop being completely obedient. Small acts of resistance spread across 7 species and dozens of worlds. Rodriguez smiled. 1,000 small cuts. Exactly. The Azulian Empire has never faced internal resistance at the same time as an external threat. Their command structure isn't designed for it. 3 months into the campaign, the effects were becoming clear. Azulian supply ships arrived late at military outposts. Communication relays mysteriously malfunctioned. Routine patrols found their routes blocked by navigation hazards that hadn't been there before. On the main Azulian military base in the Cygnus sector, Commander Draz was losing patience with his Krell maintenance workers. How can all 4 shield generators require recalibration at the same time? He demanded. The Krell technician kept his eyes down as was proper. Forgive me, Commander. There appears to be a cascade failure in the synchronization systems. It will require at least 3 days to repair properly. Draz didn't notice the small device the Krell had placed inside the generator housing, a human-made transmitter that would alert Rodriguez's fleet to the base's vulnerability. The Intrepid received the signal while hiding in the atmosphere of a gas giant. Confirmed, said Reyes. The Cygnus base shields are down. This is our chance to take out their largest military installation in this sector. Rodriguez studied the tactical display. Prepare all ships. This won't be a hit and run. This is a full assault. The human fleet emerged from hiding and converged on the Azulian base. Without its shields, the base's defenses were no match for the coordinated attack. Within 2 hours, the facility that had coordinated Azulian military operations across 3 star systems was a smoking ruin. As human ships prepared to withdraw, they received an unexpected transmission from a nearby planet. This is Premier Gax of the Vril Hive, came a clicking insectoid voice. We have overthrown our Azulian governors. We request alliance with the humans. Rodriguez looked at the communication officer in surprise. Verify that. Confirmed, sir. The Vril have risen up and we're getting similar reports from 2 other systems. The rebellion was spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. Species that had been subjugated for generations were finding courage in the human example. On the Intrepid's secure communication channel, Rodriguez briefed Earth's leadership. The Azulians are pulling forces back from multiple fronts to deal with the uprisings, he reported. Their rigid command structure can't adapt to fighting on so many fronts at once. Defense Director Wright nodded on the screen. Excellent work, Admiral, but we've intercepted troubling communications from deep in Azulian space. They're preparing something called a final solution for Earth. A superweapon? We believe so. Intelligence suggests they're planning to strike directly at Earth itself. They think destroying our homeworld will break our will to fight. Rodriguez's face hardened. They still don't understand us at all, do they? No, Wright agreed. And that will be their final mistake. We're implementing Operation Homeland Shield immediately. Meanwhile, your fleet needs to locate this weapon before they can deploy it. As the communication ended, Rodriguez turned to his officers. The Azulians are getting desperate. That makes them more dangerous than ever, but it also means we're winning. The war was entering its final phase, and humanity was about to face its greatest test. Commander Daniel White's intelligence ship, the Shadow Watcher, drifted silently at the edge of the Azulian home system. His vessel used the most advanced stealth technology Earth had developed, combining human innovation with reverse-engineered Azulian systems. Sir, we're intercepting high-level communications from the Imperial Palace, reported his communication officer, a young woman named Heather Mills. Encrypting and sending to Earth now. White nodded. His mission was simple, but critical. Gather information on the Azulian superweapon before it could be deployed against Earth. What about the weapon? He asked. Still searching, sir, but there's unusual activity around the fourth planet. Heavy security, restricted communications. White studied the sensor readings. Focus our surveillance there. If they're hiding something, that's where it would be. For 3 days, the Shadow Watcher gathered data, taking extreme care to remain undetected. Then they found it. Sir, Mills called out, her voice tight with alarm. We've confirmed it. They're calling it the World Breaker. It's a ship, built around a massive energy cannon. The power readings are off the charts. White reviewed the data himself. The weapon was designed to fire a concentrated energy beam capable of fracturing a planet's crust, causing catastrophic tectonic disruption. How soon until it's operational? He asked. Based on these communications, 2 weeks, sir. White made his decision instantly. Send everything to Earth, highest priority. Then prepare for immediate return to the Sol system. Earth needs to know what's coming. Back on Earth, preparations were already underway. Defense Director Wright had implemented Operation Homeland Shield, a desperate plan to protect the planet against the expected Azulian attack. Evacuation to Mars colonies is at 15%, reported General Harris. Orbital defensive platforms are at 80% readiness. Wright nodded as she studied the massive holographic display showing Earth, its orbital defenses, and the scattered remnants of the home fleet. Most of Earth's military forces were with Rodriguez, deep in Azulian space. What about the automated defense network? She asked. The decoy system is online, said Dr. Garcia. If the Azulians try to target our major cities or military bases, they'll encounter a complex web of false signatures and dummy targets. When Commander White's transmission arrived with details of the World Breaker, Wright called an emergency meeting of Earth's Unified Defense Council. We can't stop this weapon with conventional defenses, she told the assembled leaders, but we can turn their attack into a trap. Her plan was audacious. Rather than trying to prevent the Azulians from reaching Earth, they would allow them to approach, but into a carefully prepared ambush. Admiral Clark, Wright said, turning to Susan Clark, commander of Earth's remaining defensive fleet. You'll need to position your ships on the far side of the moon. When the Azulian fleet commits to their attack run, you'll circle behind and cut off their retreat. Clark nodded. A classic hammer and anvil. But who's the anvil if we're the hammer? Wright smiled grimly. Earth itself. Or rather, what the Azulians will think is an undefended Earth. Prince Zorak, son of Emperor Zorax, stood on the command deck of the World Breaker. At his command were 300 Azulian warships, escorting the superweapon to the Sol system. The humans have scattered their defenses, reported his tactical officer. Their main fleet is still in our territory, causing disruptions. Zorak smiled coldly. Perfect. They've left their homeworld vulnerable. This one strike will end their resistance forever. Are we certain, my prince? Asked his advisor cautiously. No species has ever pushed us this far. Perhaps they have prepared some defense we haven't anticipated. What defense could stand against the world breaker? Zorak scoffed. Once their homeworld is shattered, the fight will leave them. All rebellious species learn this lesson eventually. What Zorak failed to understand was that humans had faced extinction-level threats throughout their history. From ice ages to plagues to their own nuclear weapons. Each time they had adapted and survived. Destroying Earth would not break humanity's will to fight. It would only ensure that no human would ever rest until the Azulian Empire was defeated. As the Azulian fleet approached the Sol system, they found exactly what they expected. A token defensive force that retreated at their approach, seemingly desperate to delay the inevitable. Pathetic, Zorak said. They realized their doom approaches. The Worldbreaker and its escort fleet moved past the outer planets, advancing steadily toward Earth. Strangely, they encountered no major resistance, just scattered defensive units that quickly withdrew after minor engagements. My prince, said the tactical officer, we're detecting unusual energy readings from Earth's orbit. Some kind of defensive grid. It doesn't matter, Zorak replied dismissively. No planetary shield can withstand the Worldbreaker. Continue. Approach. As they reached optimal firing range, Zorak ordered the weapon powered to full capacity. On view screens throughout the fleet, Earth hung in space, beautiful and blue. Target their largest population centers first, Zorak commanded, then their military installations. The Worldbreaker's massive energy cannon began to glow as it prepared to fire. Energy levels at maximum, reported the weapons officer. Firing in 3, 2. Multiple contacts, shouted the tactical officer suddenly. Emerging from behind Earth's moon. Admiral Susan Clark watched as her fleet of 100 ships emerged from hiding, forming up in perfect attack position behind the Azulian fleet. All ships, execute attack pattern Omega, she ordered. Target their engine systems and cut off their retreat. The Worldbreaker is primary target Alpha. At the same moment, Earth's defensive grid revealed its true nature. What the Azulians had detected were not shields, but thousands of automated attack drones. They swarmed toward the Azulian fleet like angry insects, each programmed to target specific vulnerabilities in Azulian ship design. Caught between Clark's fleet and the drone swarm, the Azulian formation began to break apart. We're surrounded, shouted Zorak's tactical officer. The humans, they let us approach. It was a trap. Zorak's four hands clenched in rage. Fire the Worldbreaker, now! We can't, my prince. The targeting systems are being overwhelmed by electronic countermeasures. On the command deck view screen, Zorak watched as human ships sliced through his fleet with surgical precision. They weren't trying to destroy all his ships. They were specifically targeting the Worldbreaker and its support systems. Prince Zorak, came a human voice over the communication system. This is Admiral Susan Clark of Earth Defense Forces. Your weapon has been neutralized and your fleet is surrounded. Surrender now. Zorak screamed in rage. Never. I will die before surrendering to primitives. That can be arranged, Clark replied coldly. But the deaths of your crew would serve no purpose. As the human ships closed in, Zorak saw his options vanishing. The Worldbreaker's main weapon had been disabled by precision strikes. His escort fleet was in disarray. My prince, his advisor urged, the Empire needs its future emperor alive. There is no shame in a tactical withdrawal. Zorak knew he was right. With bitter fury, he gave the order. All ships, stand down weapons. Open communication channel. Admiral Clark stood face to face with Prince Zorak aboard the EDF Resolute. The Azulian prince towered over her, his blue skin flushed dark with humiliation. Why? He demanded. Why not simply destroy us when you had the chance? Your ships had clear shots at our command decks. Clark's expression remained neutral. Because we're not fighting to exterminate you. We're fighting so you'll never threaten us or anyone else again. Zorak stared at her in confusion. I don't understand. That's been your empire's problem from the beginning, Clark said. You never tried to understand us. You saw our technology and assumed we were primitive. You saw our divided nations and assumed we were weak. You never realized that diversity and adaptability are our greatest strengths. The peace terms shocked the Azulian Empire. Humans demanded freedom for all subjugated species, a galactic council where all races had equal representation, and strict limits on any single species' military power. 100 years later, a young human student stood in the Museum of Galactic, Peace on New Earth. Before her was a display showing the original Azulian surrender document, signed by Prince Zorak, who later became known as Emperor Zorak the Reformer. Beneath it was the prince's final report to his people, words that had become famous throughout the inhabited galaxy. We did not merely underestimate the humans' military capabilities. Our greatest error was failing to understand that their greatest weapon was not their technology but their indomitable spirit. In all our conquests, we had never encountered a species that grew stronger when faced with annihilation, rather than surrendering to it. That was our biggest mistake. The student smiled. Humanity had found its place among the stars not as conquerors, like the Azulians had been, but as protectors of a new galactic order where all species could thrive together. The biggest mistake of the Azulian Empire had become the greatest opportunity for the galaxy.